It is yet another Tuesday this month, and you know what that means. It's time for another Valorant patch. This one is a tad short like the last one, but there are still some interesting changes and bug fixes to cover. What is going on, ProGuides family? It is your host Sergeant Frost, and we have the patch 3.02 rundown. Unfortunately, this patch is looking pretty light once again, so we're not going to see some major changes like we saw in patch 3.0. The episode 3 patch was one of the biggest, if not the biggest update patch in Valorant history, so Riot is still probably collecting data on which aspects need changes before pulling the trigger on balancing. And that is why we have been seeing a lack of agent changes and gun changes so far in episode 3. Also, remember we still have VCT Berlin and the Valorant Masters End of the Year tournament in December, so Riot is trying to stabilize the game as best as possible before the end of the year. So just sit through this month of light patches and we could very well be in store for some bigger changes. Let's not waste any more time and hop right into it. First off, let's talk about game system updates. Changes are being made into how clipping is calculated in game, which should result in less clipping overall in your gameplay. For anyone who is not technically versed on what clipping means in a three-dimensional video game, let us quickly explain it to you. Clipping on a very basic level is when the objects or the player models themselves protrude through the walls, floors, or ceilings inside of a world. So for example, let's say you are facing a wall in game and you walked all the way up to it until you couldn't walk any further. If clipping is a major issue in said game, then the player's gun model, hands, and part of their body would appear on the other side of the wall, and an enemy player on the other side of the wall would have information that would not be available to them. This is called clipping inside of a video game, and it matters a lot more than you might think. Obviously, no game is perfect, so clipping will always be seen on some level. But this update hopes to curb the amount of hands, gun barrels, melees, abilities, and cipher hats you see through walls in game. It's nice to see Riot constantly improving the state of how their game runs on a netcode level. Now let's go on to social updates. Riot has added a space between the match rank and the leaderboard ranking for Immortal Plus rankings in the hover card UI. Now, when you finally achieve Immortal in-game, you can flex on the rest of the world your great achievement in all of its glory. Now, let's get into some bug fixes. Starting off with agent bug fixes, Sage can no longer place her barrier orb between pyramids on Breeze to create a sliver peak. Personally, I have seen this actually happen in a Breeze game recently, and I'm glad Riot has fixed this sliver peak because it was straight up unfair. The Sage I was playing against used an AWP on this sliver peak to get free kills into a cave, and there was no way to retaliate against her at all. There have been a lot of bugs lately with how Sage has been able to use her wall in episode 3. While it is a bit unnerving to see Sage mains in game attempt to turn into Elon Musk to try to find new ways to break the game's code and abuse her wall, it is nice to know that Riot is acknowledging this problem and is at least attempting to put a lid on this issue by creating fixes quickly. However, with all the different ways Sage wall is creating unfair situations, hopefully it won't affect how Riot balances Sage wall in the future if it gets too annoying to deal with. Moving on to other agents very quickly, Riot has fixed KO's textures applying themselves to weapons when he is restabilized during his null CMD, and they have removed the ability to place RAZE's boombot through some walls. For those of you who may not have experienced this before, RAZE used to be able to put her boombot through certain walls sort of like that old Yoru teleport glitch, and that caused the boombot to appear in some very weird places. I don't know how much people abuse this, but it's good to know that it's not possible for a random boombot to appear through a wall anymore. Moving on to social bug fixes, first off, thank the Lord that Riot has fixed the bug where team voice volume sliders would always reset to 50. This bug has been in the game since the beginning of 2021, and I'm so very thankful that they have finally addressed this and fixed the problem. I don't know how a simple issue like this could have plagued Valorant for so long, but thank you Riot so very much that you have finally fixed this. There have been too many times in my games where I've tried to turn teammates' mics down with little to no success, so once again, thank you. This might be one of the best changes we have seen in a patch so far this year. Lastly, for the social update bug fixes, Riot has fixed a bug where the scroll bar in the social panel would sometimes display incorrectly. They have fixed the pixelated border surrounding the unranked icon in the hover card UI. They have repaired an issue where the blurred background would sometimes make friend notes unreadable. And they have fixed a bug where the VCT Masters winner title will be overlapped by a player card in the hover card UI. Well guys, that is all we have for the patch 3.2 rundown. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel. We upload new videos just like this one every single day, and the best way to stay notified of that is by ringing that notification bell. Also, don't forget to check out ProGuides.com to gain access to some pretty amazing coaching. This has been your host Sergeant Frost, and I'll see you all again in the next video.